So I think we're live. Yeah, hello everyone. I hope some people can hear us outside, wherever you are in Germany or wherever you look or access this live stream. My name is Sebastian. I'm a photographer. I live in Berlin. At the moment, I'm in Kiev, and I have the great pleasure to introduce two guests to you tonight. The one is already in the stream. His name is Daniil, and he is currently in Kharkiv. Oh, now we have Mila as well. Hello, Mila. Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
So we just started, and I may start again because now we are complete. But we have to start quickly because Daniil is in Kharkiv right now, and the only pub where he can do the transmission is an Irish pub that is going to close in 30 minutes. So we have some very special circumstances and have to start with Daniil and talk first about his work before he leaves and proceeds with a brigade to the Donbass tomorrow in order to keep working there. In the meantime, also welcome Mila in the stream, Mila Teschaieva, a wonderful colleague of mine. I will just improvise a bit and first introduce Daniil, and we talk about his work, and then I will come to you, Mila. I want to have a bit more discussion between you two guys, but I think now it's a bit difficult, so sorry for that. Daniil, you were born 1997 in Vinnytsia, and I would say you are at the very beginning of your career. You studied from 2019 to 2015 in Wrocław in Poland at the Faculty of Journalism and majored in cinema and photography. In your thesis, you worked about the archetypes of romantic heroes in Werner Herzog's film, and you said you came to photography because of your passion for cinematography. Before the full-scale invasion started, you did some amateur documentary films, photography series in the Russian North, and you documented the life of intellectually disabled people in Poland and some other stuff. And right now, I'm very happy to have you here because you have actually a very interesting story to approach the current war in Ukraine as a photographer. Let's go to your images in a few seconds. Before we show them, I would like to say that the images can be, for some visitors, very triggering because they are very, very, very close and graphic in some cases. I think it's incredibly important to show them, but if there are some children around or if you are sensitive, please have that in mind. Otherwise, let's start to see your pictures. Daniil, you said that when the invasion started, you were actually a volunteer. And for a month, pretty much, you worked as a volunteer and you didn't work as a photographer. And after that time, you quit volunteering work in order to start taking photographs. Can you tell us something about what you did first as a volunteer?
Hello the audience, hello Sebastian, Mila. I'm sorry about the back sounds because I'm in pub. When the war started, I didn't think about making photos of this war. I never thought of me as a war photographer or photographer working during war times. Volunteering job was just cooking on the kitchen in Odessa. Odessa is like my home city to which I have the most, the closest feeling, the warmest feeling. So when the war started, with no hesitation, I just went to Odessa. And I was cooking for soldiers every day for like 8 from 6 to 8 hours per day, almost every day. Yeah, and then when Bucha happened, Borodyanka happened, Mariupol, and I've seen like fantastic work from some Ukrainian journalists, photographers. I've seen it in the media, in Instagram, on their pages, and some hesitation came to my mind that maybe I'm doing something wrong, something that somebody else can do, and I can do what I can. So it's photography, and maybe the decisive moment was actually the work of Evgeny Malaletka and Mstislav Chernov from Mariupol, their fantastic reportage. So basically, they were the last photographers, last journalists who stayed in the city, and they barely escaped alive. And when I saw these pictures from this maternity house, from the city itself, I think this was the moment when I maybe not decided, but it was this huge desire to document what's happening in my country, and I just quit volunteering job and I decided to go to Kharkiv to shoot Saltivka district, which was shot by artillery every day from Russian side. So I did this. I managed to do this with Nicole Tank. She's a New York Times journalist, and it's her fifth war. And I mean, I was super scared in Saltivka. It was too dangerous for me, um, and I just came back to Kiev from Kharkiv, thinking that I'm a coward. I'm not ready for this. Like it was shelling, like maybe in 100 meters from us, from our car, and also we were like maybe 4 kilometers from Russian positions back then. Yeah, so in Kiev I was a little bit depressed that I want to do something but I don't have enough courage, and being in this little depression, I decided to visit places like Borodyanka and Bucha and all these liberated villages in Kiev region, and actually I made some good photos that I was satisfied with. I was traveling as a fixer for some journalists from Great Britain, and also for myself with some friends. Then I decided to go to Chernigiv region, and I was getting used to some shellings, like far shellings, maybe some kilometers from me. Yeah, and then in May I decided to come in Kharkiv again, being a little bit braver maybe. It was like my second try, and yeah, from this May trip I think it all began. Like seriously, like it was first position visiting with the soldiers, some dead Russians that we found with my colleagues in liberated villages. So yeah, from this May trip, I became maybe this photographer who really documents the war in Ukraine.
You said that you try to document the war in a way it is possible for someone who never experienced the war before. To me, this was quite a remarkable sentence when I saw your images, because I had the feeling that your images are incredibly close to the front line and to, yeah, literally what happened. So yeah, what were your feelings? Do you still feel that the war is something new for you, and is it still new, or are you already like so much into it, and this is your new daily life routine, being a war photographer? Can you talk about this?
It's a good question. I mean, I think it's yes and no. From some point, I really got used to war, as maybe most of Ukrainians, regardless of if you're a war photographer or not. Some things they just don't shock you how they shocked you before. Uh, but on another hand, I try to perceive the war differently than photo journalists who document the war, or like war photographers. I met a lot of war photographers during this war. I traveled with them, shared costs, helped them as a fixer, and I feel that that they are the people who just visit a lot of wars, and every war for them it's like an experience or some field where they can make new material. And for me, it's still, as a Ukrainian, some more personal story. It's not me who came from United States, to Ukraine to document the war. It's the war who came to my country. It's me who was awakened by Russian rockets on 24th of February in Kiev. So this personal factor stays in my work and what I'm doing, but at the same time, unfortunately, I really got used to what I see. But I'm trying to fight this feeling, and see things in a fresh way, as I did in April, for example.
I remember that Mila in a panel discussion once said that she felt a bit like a soldier when she was, in being, for example, as a photographer. Mila, hopefully this quote is correct. I just remember it was in my head. I think it was from you. Daniil, did you have the same feeling? Did you have the feeling that you are not just this war photographer traveling from somewhere to visit, in a way, a war, but you are also in some ways a soldier? For example, this woman in this picture, how did she react to you?
This woman reacted to me as a person, I think, not as a soldier. We just approached her in this liberated village in Kiev, the region, and she was just riding her bicycle and crying, and we just decided to talk to her, and she was very responsive to our intention, and she decided just to talk about her experience being in occupation for 1 month, maybe more than 1 month. And then she started talking and crying, and she was very impulsive. She was crying, and then immediately her mood was changing, and she started cursing Russians, cursing Burats, and especially in this picture, it was the moment when she was making this gesture, copying the look of Burats. It's a little bit racist gesture on the West, but for her it was, like a pure experience. This is the very pure image how she remembered these days being in occupation, because she seen a lot of faces like that, and also the stories about rapes and robbery and killings. She survived all of this, so she was just riding her little bicycle, and then she just met us, some guys with cameras, and I think we were like some therapy session for her, just the way she could speak to someone. Yeah, and regarding your question about being soldier, I don't know. I don't think I feel myself as a soldier in a definitely not in literal way, because I'm not that brave as Ukrainian soldiers. But maybe if my photography helps someone understand the situation better, I hope so. Then maybe yes, I'm on some kind of front, maybe informational front. I hope so. I really want to hope so.
Some of your images are
maybe I just need to make a small comment. When I was saying that I felt like a soldier, I meant actually being on duty. So it's more like you're not belonging to yourself. You are more like kind of you're obliged being in places where you kind of maybe otherwise wouldn't be it, because it's your duty as a citizen, as a human, as photographer, and of course as a local. And I'm very sure that that actually Daniil has similar feelings.
Yeah, Daniil, thank you, Mila, first of all, for your context on my quotation. I don't know, Daniil, do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I totally agree with Mila's feelings. I mean, maybe I'm just too respect the soldiers. I don't want to compare myself to them in any way because I'm not. It's very far from for me to them. So maybe I would call it just just some piece in the big mechanism of Ukrainian society today. And yeah, definitely I try to do something, make some impact to the whole organism.
Can you tell us a bit how it works? I mean, the images we can see here are like extremely close testimonies to what happens right on the front line. You are extremely close to the soldiers, actually. So maybe you can explain a bit how it works. How are you embedded in these battalions? How are you, yeah, how do you engage with them? How do you communicate with them? How are they reacting to you as a photographer?
Yeah, we just talked about this before the stream. So you just contact the brigades, and if they have time to take you as a photographer or some journalist, a writer, TV guy, then they just invite you to the positions. And I think it's the way how it works in every country in war, but maybe Ukraine today is much more bureaucratical. So to do this, you need uh, some permissions, some negotiations with the brigades, unless you have some friends from there. Actually, these pictures that you show now, these are from the brigade where I have one, maybe not close friend, but one guy that I know. So he was happy to invite me and let me make photos of grass shooting. Yeah, but usually it's just boring bureaucratic process. It's not going to be interesting.
Would you say that you are, in a way, satisfied with these images, not in terms of the quality of the photographs, but in terms of you as a photographer finding your sense, or maybe also struggling to find your sense in this war situation? I can imagine it's quite hard. I just met a couple of days ago, not a couple of days, yesterday, I met a filmer, and he told me that he actually yeah, struggles a lot since the beginning of the war to make new films, because he feels like actually he wants to take up arms, and he wants to yeah, literally be a soldier, but also knows that he's not he doesn't have the qualities maybe to do this, but also he is absolutely not finding any sense in his art anymore. So how about you? How does it feel now for you to have this role of the war photographer?
That's a good question also, but hmm. Well, I wouldn't call myself as a war photographer still. I think I'm just a photographer who to whose country the war came. So what I'm doing is just I'm trying to cover what's happening. It's not only military brigades, it's I'm trying to cover all the stories related to this war in my country. And regarding census, I don't know. Like frankly, I don't want to conceptualize what I'm doing now in this moment. I don't feel that it's like the right moment to do this. Uh, I just have hope, that what I'm doing now with this photography, it's useful in any way. I really hope that it can be called an impact to something, and maybe I found some sense in this. But maybe the primary motivation is just my love to photography. It's just my love to this form of expression, this form of art, and maybe this is that's why this came to my mind in March when I was volunteering in Odessa, and it was just a sensation. You know, it was not actually rational. Every person that I knew, well, maybe some friends, they recommended me to do this. They believe that, yeah, Daniil, it will be great. You should do this. But most people, they said, no, you're crazy. Like, don't do that. You're not experienced. You're not that. You're not this. And yeah, it was just pure irrational motive. And I think I'm still motivated by this irrationality a little bit. Yeah.
We are coming closer to the moment when Daniil has to leave the pub and also leave us. So if there are any questions in the public, please put them in the chat. Oh, there is one question. To both artists. So let's put this question first to Daniil. Has their artist's approach to photography changed once the war started? Yeah, I think with Daniil, it's maybe opposite in a certain way, but you have maybe some insights to this from your perspective.
Yeah, I think I would say that before I might believe that what makes a good photo is some interesting stuff that you shoot. And here now, after so many months watching international photographers work in Ukraine, and it's so many of them, and they're all so, you know, legendary and so good. Now I understand that, you know, the actual stuff that you shoot doesn't decide about the photography that you do. I mean, it's obvious thing, but for me, it wasn't that obvious to that scale. Now I see that all these guys with permissions and with expensive jeeps and you know, honorars on assignment, some of them, they really make less emotional material than some guys who put a little bit more emotion. So maybe, yeah, maybe this emotional factor became much more important for me during this war, that you have to be emotionally engaged in the subject you shoot on a maximum scale.
You talk now again about these like international photographers who come on assignment to Ukraine in order to document the war. How about you? Are you actually working on assignment as well, or are the photographs you show here mainly your own personal photographs? And yeah, you do other assignments. How does it work for you?
No, I don't work on assignment. Like 90% of the pictures you showed, I made just for myself, just from travels. Usually, I just share the cost of the gas with and some car. I find some friend with a car, maybe some photographer, and we just share the costs and we just travel. Some pictures, as I told you, from Kiev region, I made just traveling with some British guys, British journalists. I just helped them as a fixer, and they allowed me to shoot. You know, they gave me some time. Yeah, but mostly I just travel for myself. Now I try to work more as a fixer because of this counteroffensive stuff, and it's a lot of journalists in Ukraine. So it's like improvisation all the time. Yeah, and actually the bar is not closed, so I can stay a little bit more, maybe 5-10 minutes.
Then I would really like to ask you a technical question. I know it's always stupid at the end of such a discussion, but I guess your photographs are made analog, black and white.
Yes, it's black and white film.
Okay, thank you.
I thought you will ask why I use film.
No, yeah, you can say why, but I just wanted to know
I just love
what.
film, and I used to shoot film before. And for me, the experience of shooting film is different from a digital. I mean, I don't say it's better or that analog photographers are better. I just speak for myself. I just compare what I do digitally, and because I took my digital camera to Borodyanka with me on the first days, and I just didn't feel the flow that much, because when you have this technical limitation as a film camera and limited amount of frames in the roll, I don't know. Paradoxically, you just feel more free, and you more concentrated on what you're doing. So, and of course, the aesthetic, the tradition of black and white film photographers. I think most of the photographers that influenced me are black and white film old guys photographers. So, no surprise.
Thank you very much, Daniil, for all your insights, basically, and also, first of all, for your photographs, because I think they are, yeah, they are just really impressive in the way you are so close, but also
Thank you.
so calm within the scenery. And what you said that you are bringing in your emotions into photography, I think this is just very, very true. When I read that you wrote your thesis about Werner Herzog, I had to think about one of his films, Lessons of Darkness,
Hmm.
about yeah, this oil explosions in the Kuwait War, which is basically, to me, a gigantic spectacle which has nothing to do anymore with what really happens. And with your photographs, I do have the feeling that I am really, that is nothing about nothing else than what happens. And I'm so extremely close and also moved by your photographs. So yeah, thank you
Thank you.
very much for that.
I appreciate your words. That's really nice to hear. Yeah, I really wish I could listen to Mila, but yeah, here the guys are closing. I'll watch in YouTube tomorrow, I hope.
Thank you, Daniil. Nice seeing you, and bravo for your photography also from me. It's really
Merci. Yeah,
incredible.
for your film also, and good luck on the festival.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, guys, it was a pleasure to
Oh,
speak with you, and take care. Good night. Bye
Thank
bye.
you so much, Daniel.
okay.
All right,
Now
Mila.
left only two of us.
Let me introduce you. First of all, great to see you. You are born in Kiev in 1974, and you obtained a Master of Arts in Photography at the Burg-Regenstein Kunsthochschule in Halle. And as a photographer, you started to work on long-term projects. For example, about the former USSR regions, which resulted in a wonderful book in 2013, I think, called Promising Waters. And a few
Right.
years later, he joined OSTKREUZ, our agency, and worked on another wonderful project called Inselwesen on the island Föhr, where you use some sort of light painting with portraits. And yeah, just lately you did a project for the OSTKREUZ group exhibition Continent in Search of Europe, which is called Unfamiliar Memory, where you travel, where you traveled in Ukraine, and the work deals with some, transgenerational trauma, I would say, and the memory of various people in your home country, while turning these memories in a way into performative acts. And you ask how to imagine how our imagined past is created, how experiences are recalled, how individual memories and national heroism correlate with each other. you had a number of solo exhibitions, for example, 2018 at the Boston's MIT Museum called Imagined Communities, probably citing Benedict Anderson's book on nationalism in this title, maybe not. And so, yeah, to conclude your career, you are actually, I would say, the master of the past, because you managed to use photography as a medium that is pretty much meant to be used as to document the present. Yeah, to deal with history, with things that are happened back in the days. Right now, you did something else in a way. You were occupied with the present, at least when the war started. You started a diary, a war diary from Kiev. So in a certain way, you really changed your approach. This was also a question from the audience. Maybe can we see
I don't think so. I think it's
yeah.
all very much connected. First of all, I'm interested in the past, and I'm so much engaged in all these projects about memory and history, because who controls the past controls the future. And basically, with every war, with every conflict, and with every project I'm engaging myself, I'm seeing it's so obvious that sometimes I'm really amazed how can it be possible that whatever you can push people to fight each other or to kill each other based on histories which happened whatever 300 years ago, which, for example, was like more or less like a case of Balkans, yeah, or let's say it was like histories could be used by propagandists. When the war in Ukraine started in 2014, and the memories, the slogans of Second World War were very largely used, and it was actually kind of all the slogans and all the, I mean, painful memories were used to create a sense of, let's say, the urgency of kind of fighting for something, yeah. And it's basically when very deep inner, let's say, conflict of Russians, yeah, it's when Russians actually started to believe propaganda. It's in the when they decided that they trust Russian TV and they support whatever actions Putin is making in Ukraine. And like current full-scale war, I mean, it's basically it's a consequence of all these histories put in propaganda machine and use it for actions. So what I'm making now, I mean, what we see today in Ukraine, it's, I mean, it's incredible tragedy and it's incredible historical event. I mean, it's same scale as basically Second World War, but, well, maybe not yet, but Europe hasn't seen, let's say, a war of this scale for the last 80 years. So yeah, it's all connected. And I was recently speaking with someone who is writing a book on personal diaries from Second World War, actually. And basically diaries, it's alternative histories. It's where we getting let's say, some other perspective on how people live at this time, what they feel, how they, I mean, how it's going day by day. And in this diary, you can see it basically very well. Sorry if I'm speaking too much.
No, it's perfect. You perfectly introduce your own work, which is now on show in the Deichtorhallen, which is a diary and which is documenting what you went through and what happened. Yeah, through your very personal experience that you wrote down almost every day in the first 2 months of the war. This is how the presentation looks like, and I adapted this a bit in order to make it readable on the screen here. So can you tell us something about your decision to make this diary? I think it was first published on a web platform called Decoder. Was it a collaboration with them to do this diary, or was it for you clear, I have to make a diary anyways, because this is exactly how I want to deal with the history that is unfolding around you? Yeah.
Well, when something as shocking and as overwhelming as let's say your hometown where 4 million people living, and when your hometown is getting hit by rockets and people running in panic, and basically like hundreds of Russian tanks are moving to this town, and you don't know if your country and if your city will exist tomorrow. And if you happen to be in this place at that moment, of course it's very natural feeling. You want to document it, yeah, and you want to fix it, and not only with photographs, but you also want to write like smallest details about meetings, about smells, about eyes, about light, yeah, something which photograph is fixing very selectively. Yeah, it's not giving this full picture. Like really your small talks with people, like your mood, which is changing. But I need to say I'm not very disciplined and I'm not very organized. So I'm actually very grateful to the coder who came to me with this proposal to make this diary. And by agreeing to this proposal, so it took, let's say, obligations and whatever I've been tired and exhausted, let's say, out of focus on thoughts, it was my responsibility actually to make it. Yeah, so it was actually a perfect combination, and I'm very happy about it, because it was really special time. And someone was asking me recently why actually I'm not writing diary anymore, why I stopped writing diary in April, because my last entry of diary, it was on 24th of April, and I wrote that that I feel like I basically have no words anymore. Like I feel that the soul I experienced it for last months, it's kind of, it followed me, and it made me speechless actually, and I want to be silent, and I want to give voices to other people. And that's actually when I started filming intensively and making documentary movie. It's so why sometimes, not sometimes, but somehow think to write a diary for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, you really need to be a writer. You really need to be dedicated to writing. I'm not a writer. I'm also not a war photographer. It was, I mean, basically, as Daniil said, maybe all these choices we made in March, April, May, and basically next months, maybe it was not fully our choices. You know, it's not, I mean, we didn't choose that our city, our country is getting attacked and thousands of people and our very close friends will die actually on this war. So basically all these first reactions, they're coming, yeah, in first moments, in first months. And then somehow, I mean, you get some kind of inner mental adaptation. So you live in it, yeah, and you continue doing things which you think it's right, but you're not like enormously overwhelmed anymore. I mean, it's very complex, and I'm not sure I'm really ready to put it in the words and explain like all this complex of feelings and all this complex how it feels, not only to be on the war, but also to, let's say, reflect on the war. Yeah, because what I'm doing is reflections, you know, but it's a very personal reflections. I don't know if they're right or wrong.
You said in one of your diaries, in one of your first, actually, this is not really about photography. This is about me, my place, about my history, and the history of the whole world that currently happens here, which is maybe a good summary of what you told before. Even though you, yeah, even though you say this is not about photography, I would like to ask you, how do you find your images? Because I think your images are quite particular and they really stand out of the masses of images that we see every day from the war in Ukraine. Can you somehow describe, even though you feel maybe that the photography is not the only key thing in your work, what is it or what was it in these first months of the war that made you take a picture?
Well, what makes us actually taking pictures?
Also, maybe because I guess you took many more pictures, and you in the diary you just saw one picture and one text, so it's, I guess, a really reduced selection. So how were your choices to come to the selection? Say, this is my image for the day.
Well, for the diary, I mean, for the diary, I was looking actually for images which would not tell the story, but would rather transform my feelings of this particular day, or what I mean, the atmosphere of this particular day or this particular time. So kind of in a way, I mean, it's not it's less journalistic pictures, but more like, let's say, abstract feelings. Yeah. Well, again, if it could be a right explanation, how I work, I mean, and maybe why my pictures look different. I mean, I'm not a war photographer again, yeah, and I'm not even a reportage photographer. I'm really functioning like for many years as a very slow slow photographer. I mean, I'm making months long of research. I'm meeting with people. I'm spending weeks speaking and talking without making any photographs. I need to spend a lot of time in places, feel the place, feel the atmosphere, know the history, know the circumstances. And then slowly, something is coming as a whole, yeah, and then I start to work and produce. What happened in Ukraine, it was completely different. I mean, I actually had to be fast, like very fast. I'm not sure it was actually always good. Similar like to Daniil, I stayed alone in April. Mother of my friend gave me a car, and I was able finally to just go, step out of the car and approach someone, and actually spend whatever 3-4 hours just speaking with someone, maybe without photographs, but feeling close, being close. And it was important for me. I felt it was important for people that someone is really being with them, not just photographing and running away, but really staying, being, hugging, saying whatever, everything will be good, even it sounds absurd when your house is ruined and your whatever husband is killed, but someone is simply with you. And it was important for me because it was enormous pain, basically, which we all discovered in Kiev region when Russian army retreated. And basically it was also difficult for me to handle this pain inside myself, but supporting others, it was a little bit more easy. So I'm not sure if I answered your question about photography. I don't know how I decide how photography is made. It's simply coming. I mean, photography is continuation of me. I mean, my eyes is continuation of my soul, and camera is a continuation of my eyes. Sometimes it works together, sometimes not. But yeah, I never feel sorry about missing photographs, actually.
Yeah, thank you. I think you just answered like many more questions than I asked you, but it's perfect. Also, when I think when you went to the Kiev region after the retreat of the Russians, it looks like to me in this diary, it looks like that made you make a break with your diary, because between the 2nd of April and the 24th of April there, you didn't write any diary entry. And even though I can't read anything of you, it really makes me like imagining what happened in the meantime, and how were you feeling in the meantime, and all these personal remnants. And the way this diary constructed is really I think a great historical source to understand what happened to you, and also all many other diaries that I came to read from the first weeks of the war, especially. You already said that you then, after finishing this diary at the end of April, started to work, or you already worked on a film, actually. So something that is very much slower, much more slower than making a diary. Can you maybe say a bit more about it? the decision to make a film, and I think it is your very first film, so it's also, I guess, something new for you.
Yes, it's new, and it's I mean, it's absolutely again overwhelming experience, but it's what is really very interesting about this war. I mean, it was a question from someone who asked me and Daniil what changed in our artistic practice with the war. It's kind of interesting, but this situation, you know, when life and death are actually so close to each other, and when absolutely every day you see the death, but you also see so much life, and you see so much, like, people actually want to live and they're fighting for life. And kind of what changed in my artistic practice, I think I became much more brave. I became much more free. And the fact that I actually kind of just jumped into making film, I'm a very shy person, yeah. Making film in this kind of circumstances, it requires a lot of, let's say, pushing and approaching people, and like really kind of, I mean, you can't make it like photography, you know, make some clicks and go away. You really need a lot of time. So it somehow made me more free and more brave, just to say, I feel I want to do it, and I'm doing it. And it was incredible, but it was why film actually, because it was really disappointing when such a absolutely immense tragedy comes, like, to places which you know so well. I mean, like, Bucha is a place where I was going for picking up mushrooms with my mother in the childhood, you know. And when you suddenly see, like, you're walking on the street, and I mean, the bodies, like dead bodies lying on the street, I couldn't imagine I could see it in my life ever. But people who spent also time in with Russians, who've been surviving all these horrors, when they feel you're ready to listen to them, they can't stop. They need to get it out. And I wanted, I mean, in this film, I was giving them chance, actually, not to give interview for the news channel, but really, really putting it outside, you know, like really being intimate with them, really being close with them. And I mean, I'm basically, I'm kind of, it's normal for me that I'm getting close to people. But in this situation, it was critically important. So it was a very, very natural, normal move from photography to film, because it was necessary for this. It was necessary to give people voice, and it was necessary to tell a story in a more like, let people outside to hear sound, to hear voices, to kind of to see movements. Yeah.
Yeah, I think first of all, if there are questions from the audience, please
Yes.
put them
Yes.
around. But I wanted to say that I want you all to have a look at the film of Mila, which is coming out soon, I guess, at the EDFR Festival in Amsterdam. So it's gonna be called When Spring Came to Butcher, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
it will be world premiere. We are very proud of it.
That is awesome. You already worked on a documentary that was shown in German television. Maybe there are some overlaps. At least what I saw in this documentary were people, all kinds of people, musicians, medical examiners, administrators, citizens, soldiers, who were terribly mourning, of course, but also at the same time dealing with this war in the way, as if they had prepared for it their whole lives in a certain way. There was a certain sense of unwaveringness and what was visible in the film, which was really impressive to me and reminded me of what you said when you said at the same time the experience of making a film was very, very overwhelming for you, but you just did it and you just went through doing this and maybe went out of your comfort zone or whatever. But I think without having seen the film, it's going to be a really important one to have a look at. So some advertisements once again.
Yes. I don't see questions from the audience. Maybe you can help me, because I don't see anything.
I also don't see anything yet. I think Matthias from the Deichtorhallen, who is managing it in the background, will show up the questions to us as soon as there are any. So it seems like for the moment there are no questions for the audience. Nevertheless, I think, all of you enjoyed the talk and enjoyed the works of Mila and Daniil. And I hope, you got some insight from what they told us tonight. And I wish you good luck with everything. I wish you all the best, Mila, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you.